What's up, YouTube? Flash Speaks back for another video. First off, before I start, I appreciate all those who've donated, especially by way of the not the super chats, but the supers. All that is appreciated because for some reason, some of the content that I upload, YouTube isn't like allowing me to monetize certain things, I guess copyrights or whatever. But for those who like that type of content, just to offset the fact that some of it is just being done and just, you get nothing for it, even though I do enjoy doing it in general. That type of stuff will be appreciated, especially for those types of videos. It may actually happen to this one because I guess this is in Fox Radio video. I don't know. Who knows? But Doug Gottlieb, one of Fox's analysts, I guess you call him, a guy who over the years has made some interesting comments and has some interesting takes that I typically don't necessarily subscribe to and have disagreed with, but I like those guys that I disagree with. I find them more interesting. Guys that's just spewing what I agree with. There's nothing really to make content about. Here, Doug Gottlieb is speaking about Cheryl Reeves. Cheryl Reeves, the coach of the Minnesota Lynx, has received a lot of flack, in particular from Caitlin Clark fans. For really, I don't know. I don't know if it's anything particular that she said. Maybe one of you brothers or sisters or whoever could let me know, fill me in on exactly what she said. I'm looking and researching, and I haven't found it. Now, you find the typical people talking about they think she supports lesbians or she's too liberal. They attach the word woke to her, quote unquote, and these types of things. Typically, those types of comments I don't put much credence to, because those things are usually politics driven, and people tend to not be very objective, in my opinion. When you see someone supports a group of people that you don't support, you automatically attach a whole number of other things to them. You tend to start now believing that because she may support, I don't know, I'm just throwing something out there, lesbian rights, for example. Let's just say that. And you're a person, as a Caitlin Clark fan, who assumes that Caitlin Clark has an issue with lesbianism or whatever. And some people do, which I don't understand, because I've heard rumors that Kate Martin, her best friend, might be gay. I don't know. I've actually heard that. But what I'm saying is, if that's true, then how could one assume that Caitlin Clark has, a problem with that? That's really the point I'm just trying to get at, right? But that notwithstanding, Cheryl Reeves, I think she wore a shirt or something about, says black women or something in support of them. And if you have a problem with her for that type of stuff, then, yeah. But Doug is going to speak on what he feels about Cheryl Reeves, and I'm going to chime in. You know how we do.
Really interesting what's happened to the WNBA. In the perfect timing, they're going to get a new TV deal, which is going to obliterate the old TV deal. They're still going to lose money this year doing the charter flights. I think putting cart before horse is a little bit much, but the Caitlin Clark effect is real. It just is. And the latest sign is that they got 3.44 million people watched the WNBA All-Star Game on ABC, topping the previous record of 1.44 million. So 2 million more people watched the WNBA All-Star Game, in which the WNBA...
And this is a good victory for the WNBA as a whole. You're talking about 3.4 million. In the previous record, I think was 1.2 or something of that nature. That's really good.
All-Stars beat Team USA. Anyway, 2 million more people watched, and I I can't equate every one of those 2 million people to be because of Caitlin Clark, but are we okay saying 85, 90%? Jay Stu, would you say that's a reasonable percentage that she brings 85? Oh, I hear a ding ding. But that's Sam. Okay, Sam watches everything Caitlin Clark does in a not creepy way. Okay, I want to point that out. It's not creepy, respectful way. You just like watching her play basketball. You love watching her play basketball. But do you think that's a fair number? About 85, 90%?
Yeah, I think that's a little low. You know.
My man said he thinks that's low, 85, 90%. So we think, shoot, it's about 95% watching for Caitlin Clark. Now, this is what I'll say. Obviously, Caitlin Clark has a tremendous fan base. You look at that, she was the leading vote getter for the All-Star game. There was completely more votes just in general overall. So you have to, and then you look at the fact that her teammates, 2 of her teammates make it as well. And Alyssa Smith comes close to making it. And, performance-wise, Alyssa Smith shouldn't even be sniffing it, the All-Star game. You would have to say a lot of it is due to Caitlin Clark fans. They're very vocal, and they do these types of things. They put their votes in. They're very active. Right? Gotta give them that. However, I think we can get a little confused about the numbers, you see. There is an overall greater interest in the product as well. Because what I refuse to do is to discount people like myself. Like, I'm not watching for Caitlin Clark, okay? Now, I do have a curiosity about how her career goes. And that's because I'm a sports fan. And my first introduction to Caitlin Clark was through people telling me that this is the greatest women's basketball player that they've ever seen. Better than Cheryl Miller, better than Cynthia Cooper, better than Maya Moore, better than Candace Parker. Like, these are the things I've heard. Better than Cheryl Swoops. These are the things that I've heard prior to ever watching her dribble a basketball. Okay? So part of me, out of curiosity, was watching her. When I saw her play, I'm impressed with some things. I don't agree with the assertion that people have labeled, that people have made, saying that she's the greatest and all of that. No, I don't buy into that. But believe it or not, that opened the window to me even watching things like the LSU championship game, the final championship game. I'm more prone to watch Dawn Staley personally because I'm familiar with her. I've seen Dawn Staley in person a number of times, whether it be, watching her when I was a little kid, watching her play out the playgrounds back in the late 80s, had to be early 90s. I've seen her in public places, like at IKEA, for example. I've seen Dawn Staley there. When I used to be a valet at a place before, I've seen Dawn Staley come through. I've seen a number of times. So I'm more prone to watch her, than say a Caitlin Clark. So I watch more just because I'm curious to what, Dawn Staley's doing. I wish her well and that, that sort of thing. Believe it or not, I was more so attracted to Angel Reese's game. Because number one, I didn't know about either one of them until they were all over the place media-wise. Just media-wise. Now, I heard her name before. Don't get me wrong. I've heard the name Angel Reese before. My daughter follows her on Instagram and stuff like that. And I've heard the name Caitlin Clark, I think. But the first time they really were brought to my attention, and I'm sorry if I'm talking too long, but the first time they were brought to my attention was when Fox and ESPN and First Take and all of them were talking about the incident that happened during the championship game. That's literally the first time. That developed a curiosity in me. But then when I started researching the players, I was more impressed with Angel Reese's game. Because I project that type of player as being a player that will succeed anywhere at any time. Like, if you play defense, you rebound the basketball, you're always going to have a job. Whereas with Caitlin Clark, I believed it's possible she could, but I still had questions as to whether or not she would be able to deal with the physicality on the next level. Would she be placed in the perfect situation? Because I was able to see right away when I watched Iowa play. I said the only way she really thrives is if she has a certain type of offense that she's allowed to run. My questions were whether or not you could plug and play her anywhere. Like, I know a lot of people don't understand this and they'll criticize that, but there's plug and play players, and then there are players that have to be facilitated for. Right? You have to kind of bend everything else for them. Right? Like, for example, Kevin Durant, plug and play player. LeBron James, a player that you gotta stop everything and build it around them for that person to really be effective in the game. And that's not saying, necessarily Angel Reese is a better player, but I automatically saw, okay, a player like who does what she does will be fine. Caitlin Clark was more of a question mark. If that makes sense. But what I'm saying here is, I refuse to be because even though I watch Caitlin Clark games, I refuse to not be counted as a person that's here to watch Angel Reese, in other words. Right? Because what it starts to do is it starts to get into kind of the logistics of the country here. And that's what happens. Black people and African Americans as a whole, we do have this issue where we are tired of, we're tired of being considered looked at as though our view or what we want doesn't count. And sometimes I think some of that effect happens with this Caitlin Clark thing. Though there's evidence that there's plenty of black people who do watch Caitlin Clark. There's no doubt about it. But I would still say that those black people who are those staunch Caitlin Clark supporters represent a minority within the black community. Okay? And I'm bringing this up because we have to admit that Caitlin Clark's fandom, especially I would say the more radical parts and all of that, the parts that added politics to it and the parts that are saying that, Caitlin Clark is hated because she's a straight white girl and in a place that's black and all of that. That group of her fan base, the group that I think most people have a problem with, are vast majority white conservative. I think it's safe to say that, right? What happens with people like me and others we're kind of tired of acting as if when the vast majority of white people are supporting a particular thing, that's the only thing that counts. And when blacks are supporting that, like say an Angel Reese, that's insignificant because it's a smaller number. I mean, if that makes sense.
What's 90% of 3 million?
Well, 2 million. 2 million is the difference, right? So 90% of 2 million.
1.8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1.8 million more people watched because of Caitlin Clark. I think that's reasonable.
Now, do we include the fact that they wanted to see how she did against Team USA because they left her off, or is it just the Caitlin Clark is playing, I'm watching factor? Because I actually think that there could be multiple different audiences.
Can I say yes on both?
Sure.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what he's saying, that there's multiple different audiences. There's some people that are watching to see if Caitlin Clark fails. That happens as well. But that'll still be counted in watching for Caitlin Clark. But it isn't all fandom and it isn't all support. I'm not one of those people that wants to see her fail. I will put it this way. I do watch because I have points to prove to her more radical fan base. I don't want Caitlin Clark to do bad, but I do want it to be made manifest to them that she's not the best yet. Right? She has an opportunity to be the best, sure. If she works on the weaknesses and so on, sure, that can happen. But there are individuals who believe prior to the season, going into the WNBA, before the season ever played, that she would be the best player. And what they do is they look for little things. Oh, well, she broke this little record here, or broke that little record there. This is proof she is the best player there. This is proof she's better than those girls in the Olympic team. The team will be better if she's there. If they're all just letting her play point guard and they're just running around and letting her facilitate. This is a sentiment that's going on. That I do desire for that to be disproven, because I think it's wrong and it's nonsense. Now, if I'm proven to be wrong, I don't mind that either. I just, from watching basketball, I don't believe building around Caitlin Clark completely like that, where all the other players are just subordinate to her passes and stuff like that, is the best, most effective way to build a team. I believe in ball movement. I believe in equal sharing the ball, similar to how the San Antonio Spurs were built, where their primary point guard, if you look at his numbers, they're not crazy numbers. He'll have like Tony Parker, the most assists he might have had in the years, maybe 6 or 7. He's always teetering around that. If you look at the Chicago Bulls, the assists were shared amongst them. Scottie Pippen to get you 5.5. Michael Jordan to get you 6 assists. Right? It's shared. Harper get you 5 assists. They shared. I just fundamentally believe in that style of basketball over like Chris Paul, for example. Never won a title. But Chris Paul he might have 13 assists for the season. 10 assists. But they're not winning. Right? I just have seen in many places where I just don't believe in that as a formula. This isn't anything against Caitlin Clark. It's just more so my view of the game of basketball and what winning basketball looks like.
I think yes on both. But I don't think, I could be wrong, I don't think most people who tuned in knew that it was Caitlin Clark versus Team USA. I think there's a percentage of people that knew that. I vaguely paid attention to it. As you guys know, I don't like All-Star games. And I knew she wasn't going to participate in the three-point shooting contest, and she said she needed a night off. Okay. And she used that night off, and she played really, really well, and she just facilitated. I mean, to me, that made me want to watch more. And the other part, too, was that it was actually a pretty good basketball game.
What made him want to watch more? The fact that she didn't participate in the three-point contest, or the fact that she facilitated? I'm not clear there.
Like, it actually goes counter to what the NBA guys do, where they think people want to watch them dunk and shoot open threes and do crazy stuff, but it's like, yeah, that works with summer camp when kids are 8 and they're sitting around and anyone who dunks becomes their hero.
Amen. We agree there, Doug. We agree on that.
But I think the basketball game kept the audience there. And then the fact that USA Basketball, it's the same coach. And did you hear what's her name? I'm sorry. She's the Minnesota Lynx coach. She's the coach of USA Basketball. I don't know if you guys heard her after the game, but she was asked about roster construction and whether she would make any changes. She said no. But again, she at no point did she say the committee decided. This feels like it was her call. I mean, all of this stuff feels like it's really because at the end of the day, it is her team, and I understand that. Hey, it's your team, and you want it one way.
So roster construction, what do you mean? Like take players off and add what, Caitlin Clark?
But that was an interesting one.
I do also.
What did she say? Also, so because Cheryl Reeves was asked would she make any changes to the roster, she said no, that's an issue. Why?
So think Cheryl Reeves.
Cheryl Reeves, yeah. She's the coach of the Lynx, and she's made some comments which I don't think are perceived as negative towards Caitlin Clark. I think she's very negative towards the Caitlin Clark effect.
Yeah.
Okay, the Caitlin Clark effect.
All right, now, this is very interesting that he said, and I think that Doug is definitely onto something here. Most people that I know and deal with don't have a problem with Caitlin Clark, the person or the player. The problem people have is with the Caitlin Clark mania. The maniacs. The exaggeration about, how good she is right now. The exaggeration about How, as I heard this one guy said to me, earlier, he came in my comment section and said that, Caitlin Clark is carrying her team, and Angel Reese is a role player. Like, first of all, the term role player, every player plays a role on the team. That's number one, just to be technical. But beyond that, you clearly don't understand the construction of the Chicago Sky. Either you're not watching them, or you don't know what you're talking about. Angel Reese on the Chicago Sky vacillates between being the primary first option on the team or being number two. It's between her and Kennedy Carter, pretty much, for the most part. Now, in terms of her role on the team, she is the unquestioned leader of the team. Like, she really is. Like, this wasn't expected, but this is what it turned into. Those players will tell you that. So, like, it's that type of stuff. Like, we can appreciate how good of a basketball player Caitlin Clark is without downing Angel Reese. And I know what it is. It comes from this belief that Angel Reese is a threat. But all of that is when we talk about the Caitlin Clark effect. And I'm tired of people, kind of conflating the two. That you're a Caitlin Clark hater. No. I'm just criticizing, or I'm just speaking about basketball. You can do that without being a hater. Being a hater is, Caitlin Clark stinks. Caitlin Clark sucks. Caitlin Clark is not good. There's some people who say those types of things. I don't necessarily endorse it. I think she is good. Now, when you start saying she's better than A'ja Wilson, then I gotta, in an attempt to correct you, I gotta talk about where her deficiencies are. Because I know you need to know that. That's when that happens. When you start to act like she's the best point guard in the league. Why? Just because there's more to the point guard position than passing. The primary thing, honestly, is that you protect the ball. And right now, she's the worst in the league at protecting the ball, so she has to fix that before she can even be in the conversation of the best point guard, in my opinion, and in the opinion of any classical, basketball analyst. What we can't do is all of the things that she does well, we praise and say, she's better than everybody. Then all of the things where she has flaws, and you're just a rookie. That I won't do. That's, those are the types of things that destroy sports.
I've been on record that I feel that the Caitlin Clark effect has been in place long before Angel Reese started to do her taunting and pointing at the ring and the "you can't see me" like Caitlin Clark did in previous games. But I also do think that people were curious on how Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese would be as teammates.
That is just not true, that there was a Caitlin Clark effect before that LSU game where Angel Reese did the "you can't." That is not true. That is not true. I'll say this. Amongst people who follow women's college basketball, and especially people who follow Iowa Hawkeyes, of course, for them, they love Caitlin Clark, and she's the greatest thing that ever happened to that school. Sure, you're talking about a little program like Iowa where you have this young lady who is just, shooting logo threes and making all these fancy passes, and she's breaking records, breaking school records, and she's challenging national records. Of course, that's a great story for them, for that local team. That's their local pride. I do not doubt that. But as far as it being a national story that included me, because this is when I jumped on. This is when everybody I know jumped on. This is when, I was not say jumped on, but start paying attention. I'm not going to sit here and let anyone act like that timing and all those people who came on at that time are insignificant. No, it's very significant. It's a fact. And actually, according to Google, the numbers show that the popularity spiked at that moment. And I also understand the dynamics of American culture. I also understand that. Just the optics of a black woman mocking a white woman. I already know what that does. I already know what those types of optics do. I know. That was the same reason it was this big thing in the Congress where you had this black representative, I forget their names, Marjorie Taylor Greene or something like that. There was a going back and forth between the black woman and the white woman. That was a big thing. And if you don't understand that their race plays a part in it, you're just naive, man. You don't understand. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. But I understand what gets attention. Whether you agree or not, the media knows. That's why that image was all over the place. The media could have just ignored it and just continued on and wouldn't have been a big thing. I saw it because it was on ESPN. It was on FS1. I saw it because Stephen A. Smith talked about it. I saw it because Acho talked about it. I saw it because Skip Bayless talked about it. That's how I knew about it. And you're not going to sit there and act like the time people like me started paying attention is insignificant. And you're also not going to sit here and act like just because the Angel Reese supporters, who are primarily black people, are less in number than Caitlin Clark supporters, who are primarily white conservatives, are less important and less significant. We're not going to do that, man. We're not going to do that. They both have supporters. Sure, Caitlin Clark supporters are more. Yeah. It's a combination of two things. Her game, she is white, and white conservatives jump on. They're going to automatically support that person because that's their mindset. That's number one. And it's not saying she don't have the talent. And then number two, she has a game that casual basketball people who aren't really nuts and bolts people, that they gravitate towards. Because it is, after all, entertainment. I understand that. I just happen to be a nuts and bolts guy. I just happen to be a guy that likes the Dennis Rodmans. I happen to be a guy that loves the Bill Russells. I happen to be a guy that likes the Draymond Greens. I'm a guy that likes the Moses Malones. I'm a guy that likes, I like those types of players. I love Charles Oakley. I loved Otis Thorpe. Bill Lane Beer. I like those players because I understand how important they are to overall team winning. Most people just focus on the superstar who's, shooting the threes and all of that. I mean, and that's their prerogative. I understand. But I'm not going to act like everyone doesn't count here.
Which was another reason why people maybe tuned into that game. To see how they would work on the same team, considering we feel that they're such adversaries.
That's true. I was curious to see how they would be on the same team, and I knew they would do well. I didn't know how many minutes they'd be on the floor together, but I assumed that the WNBA coaches understood, that people wanted to see it, so they would put them on the floor for at least some time.
Sam, what did you think in watching?
Yeah, it was a higher scoring game, which, it was kind of looked like an NBA score. Because usually you don't see WNBA games get into the hundreds, versus the hundreds.
Yeah, but the WNBA games are 8 minutes less. That's one reason why. They don't play as many games. They don't play as many minutes. 40-minute game versus a 48-minute game.
Again, though, a kind of a problem, and I think maybe Caitlin Clark is aware of this, is that her three-point shooting has been really bad. So she was 0 for 7 in that game. She only had 4 points. She did have the record with 10 assists for a rookie, which was great. So she's definitely doing the quarterback thing well out there on the floor. She's really seeing the court well. But yeah, I think she needs this, 5 weeks off during the Olympics to, first of all, probably for the first 3 to 5 days, just hang out and sleep.
Gotta get away.
Lay under a blanket, have your phone off, and put a do not disturb sign on her door.
It is one of those things.
Again,
can you imagine being her?
No. Can you imagine logging into her Twitter and like you couldn't possibly look at all the mentions and just. I think the best thing for her is just to block it out, and she's been doing that I think pretty well. But she's tired, physically tired, and probably emotionally and spiritually tired, and just wants to be maybe left alone for a week.
Yeah.
But she's handled it well. I mean, on the
she
outside,
has handled it well. She has handled it well, and
a grown up.
And probably the best thing for her is to not go. But I think it's bad for the brand of women's basketball, because otherwise it's just women's basketball. We're dominant. We get it. We go out there, but people will legitimately care about Caitlin Clark.
How about the?
All right, I agree with everything they were saying about she needs a rest, and even Caitlin Clark at some point mentioned the mental health aspect of it. I made a video a few months back about that. I compared her to. I looked at her in contrast with Simone Biles and also Naomi Osaka. Oftentimes, when outside people, entities, start to put or push their agendas on these athletes, like I believe the conservatives are doing, many of them are doing with Caitlin Clark, expecting her to support the things that they are about and so on. Sometimes this puts undue stress on the athlete, who doesn't know what to do. On one hand, you got Nike and these people paying them and they're about what they're about. And then on the other hand, you got all the support from these fans and so on who got you back. But at the same time, they're using your name for things that you may or may not necessarily agree with. And that stuff can lead to stress and it can affect play. Now, to her credit, I think she has done as much as she can to block it out. And yeah, she can use this time, man, to go meditate. Go chill, get away from it, spend time with her family, man. And I agree with that part of it. Now, Doug, he's still trying to push his agenda to get her on the Olympic team because he thinks it's like bad for the product. And no, it isn't. It just isn't. Would she help bring eyes to it? Sure. But Mad Dog Russo was right. When you look at the times that they're on and stuff like that, anyway, it doesn't really matter. Caitlin Clark will be on 2028's Olympic team. So,
Opposite. How about the opposite? I want a poll. Maybe we'll put it out on our Fox Sports Radio Twitter feed. Are you rooting against Team USA women because Caitlin Clark's not?
I can't stand Cheryl Reeves. I think she comes across as, well, I think you know what the word is.
Well, let me answer it. I'm rooting against her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I would really
like traitors.
No, I just again her whole act, her whole bravado is so it's not just unbecoming of somebody who's a coach.
I don't agree with that at all. You never heard anyone say this about Bobby Knight. Never heard anyone say this about Doc Rivers. Like, it's an athlete in athletics. Right? They just because it's a woman don't mean they automatically turn into who do you want, Susie Q when it's time to talk and stuff like that. They're athletes, and people have to become more comfortable with women in the athletic space. Shout out to Candace Parker, who was very mannerly, and I think she carries herself very ladylike in these situations. But also shout out to people who be they damn self, man. Cheryl Reeves, that's who she is, and she's just saying what the fuck she is. And this is what I'm saying about. This is the thing about a lot of these guys like this, man, is they expect people to act in a way that pleases them. They have to conform to some code of mannerisms that they don't truly believe in. Like, it's Doug Gottlieb. He thinks he can get up here on the microphone and just talk like an ass. There's at times I've heard him do that. And that's perfectly fine. But a coach, they have to, put on some act that they want. And then this is the same thing that's going on in other areas, like locally. I'm going to do a video about the local Philly media who want Jalen Hurts to sit up there and just say things that they want him to say and not be who they are. And this is one of the problems people have with Angel Reese, one of the major problems. They don't want Angel Reese to be who she really is, or her authentic self, and speak at the microphone. But they want her to be, I guess act the way Caitlin Clark acts. Well, Caitlin Clark is Caitlin Clark, and Angel Reese is Angel Reese. Right? And as long as she's not up there cussing anyone out or not acting in a way that completely breaks the code of just common decency, what is your fucking problem? Why do people have to conform to what you think they need to conform to just because you're watching a sport? Get over yourself. You're not that damn important for any of you who think like that. Accept people the way they are. You know, I've telling you, it makes life a lot easier, man. You know, and telling you, I've met high spiritual people. I've met them like in deserts who are into the meditating thing, who have close relationships with God. And the one common thread with all of them that I really admire and appreciated, all of them accepted me the way I am, with all my flaws and all my bullshit. They've all accepted me exactly how I am. Ain't trying to change me, none of that. But just from being around a person like that, just from being around them, treating me kindly, I start to change anyway, because you start to gain admiration for that type of person. You want to strive to be like that type of person. And then automatically you start imitating it and changing. That's how that works, because just aura can change people. Just energy can change people. It doesn't always have to be you preaching and you talking shit and you criticizing. You know, that's the secret to interpersonal relationships. You know, that we're sharing the same air, sharing the same breath, sharing the same energy space. But there I go again, getting off on these tangents.
But you know, your job when you're USA basketball, the coach USA basketball, like, you're a champion of the game. You're growing the game, and there just isn't, like, you know, there's a coach speak code that everyone knows, and she refuses, and it shows her what has to be an insecurity, right?
Hold up. So because she don't stick to the coach speak code, this means she's insecure. Like, how the hell does sticking to coach speak, which oftentimes is just an act and bullshit and is not representative of who you are, how the hell is that an insecurity? I think you just grasping at straws, Doug, because she refuses to be your little, what I call a Toby that you want. Who are you? Who are you? Why is your opinion so damn important?
He feels like Shooter McGavin. That's what she feels like. I was too busy winning. Like, all right, dude, but she took the worst team in the WNBA. They're terrible to start the year, and now they're competitive. And, oh, yeah, by the way, she's really good, and people care. They go on and watch her play. And when put in a situation where you have better players around her, she becomes a facilitator. Like, I don't understand what her deal is, other than some massive, massive insecurity. And as we've said before, she is the embodiment of what's wrong with what's...
Maybe someone can let me know what he's talking about here. Was Cheryl Reeves asked specifically about Caitlin Clark being on the team or something like that? Is that the case? As if so, like, what's it matter? Like, Caitlin Clark was not on the team. Why does she have to be on the team? This particular team. You know, why?
What's hard with women in the workplace is that the biggest challenge, biggest hurdle for women to get over in the workplace is other women.
Nah. This is a common bullshit take. And any of you who think this is simping or anything like that, y'all go kick rocks. Let me explain something to you about this. Women dealing with women when they're alone, working on a project, working in business, or working in anything like that. This is something I've found. Their issues, or whatever you perceive as issues, aren't really highlighted like that. Not really, as I've noticed it. Because I've worked in an industry before where, you know, it's primarily women. I used to be in the dentist industry, okay? Typically, they were just fine, especially when it's just a business. Now, if it's just sitting around on some bullshit and, you know, you start dealing with personalities and all of that, then that's different. But if women are just alone, without any men or whatever, working on something, it'll work just fine. Sometimes it's actually very efficient if you have mature women. And if there's any immature elements in there, the women, they'll check themselves. They'll check each other. The older women will check the younger ones, and so on and so forth, as long as they have a code of ethics. The problem comes in, from what I've seen, especially in the workplace, is situations where there's both men and women. both men and women. Why? Because, and I've been the recipient of this before. You know, I walk in, right, in a place where it's just typically women all the time. Now, all of a sudden, you know, not to toot my horn, whatever. I walk in, right? So one of them yells, "Hey, oh shit, oh my God, there's a man in here," whatever, right? So you got the type of woman whose personality is to be a certain way around men. So some of them are now, their insecurities are challenged. Some women are like, become very like nervous when it's a man around that they might be maybe attracted to or whatever. Don't really know how to act, so they start acting silly. You got some women that immediately flirt with damn near every dude they see, right? So they just start playing around. You got some women who are trying to front a certain way because they want to give off an image and fronting for the other women and stuff like that, right? So it can become that type of situation because men entered into the area now. So there's a type of, there can be a type of competition for the man's attention. There's a number of different elements that come about. And this is why in classical societies, men and women are separated. And men and women are only dealing with each other in the interest of marriage or something like that. This is why in traditional societies, men and women weren't mixed like that. Because that's when the problems come about. But when women are just by themselves and just doing their thing, they're fine. I know women who run all types of businesses, daycare centers, run restaurants, run different things like that. And they're fine. The places are efficient and all of that. You start throwing men up in there, and you got sexual tension and energy and all of that stuff thrown into the mix, now you have a problem.
Rapid radios are instant push-to-talk walkie-talkies offering national...
Anyway, man, this thing has gotten way longer than I wanted it to get to, man. So Doug Gottlieb has a problem with Cheryl Reeves because Cheryl Reeves, I guess, is a real one. You know, she go out there and say what she want. You know, one of those. And that's a common thing. You know, we want women to act a certain way. Whatever. Hey, listen, unless you my woman, my wife, my daughter, my niece, I'm not trying to tell you how to act. You know, do your thing. Just don't be a threat to me physically. Don't be a threat to none of mine. We good. You know. But other than that, man, people like Cheryl Reeves, you know, Angel Reese, so on, these extroverted women, they're just entertainment, bro, to watch. You know, now I don't mean in an inappropriate way, just entertainment. Watch their games, man, and watch them do their jobs well. But understand, people have different temperaments and personalities, and accept them all, man, as long as they ain't harming you. Peace out.